Okay, we're here, day 2, Romford Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined by some of the filmmakers behind City of Hate documentary we've just had. You've come all the way from America, you two, so thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to just introduce yourself and the role in the film, please?
Yes, I'm the director. My name's Quin Mathews, and it's a film that's long. It's been in development for many decades.
Yes.
And then, as I say, Bart was the executive producer who really got this going.
So I'm Bart Weiss. I asked him to make the film, and I asked him the questions during the interview. And just as an odd coincidence, we come from Dallas. The film before this was directed and produced by a former student of mine, Josh Gallus.
Wow.
So hope you all like that first film.
Half of a horror, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a moving film, great film.
That's all
I will tell him everybody applauded for his film.
Yeah.
He'll be happy.
Hi, my name is Pizzicaroli, and I work for the Film Festival Doctor, and I've been helping Quin on his festival run, and it's a privilege to be able to be here, and an honor to be able to be part of this project that's so important today, especially with everything that's going on, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. First question then, what is it like seeing your film up on a big screen? Maybe that's not at home, somewhere else around the world?
Well, this is important to me. I have family in the UK, in London, and this is the international premiere. This is first time it's shown across the pond, and it's very important because I know Americans have a certain perspective, and people in the UK may have a different perspective about what's going on in America. Quite frankly, I think most of us are horrified by what's going on right now. Yep. And there are echoes, certainly, of the time in the mid-'60s, and we see that through our historical consultant, Michael Phillips, that it was going on long ago, and in a very unfortunate and different way, continues today. So it's important to me to be here. It's very important that you came to see the film, and that means a lot to me.
How did we get to this point, each one of you? What's your background? How did we get to this point? What made you want to be a filmmaker?
Well, I'll start on this. Like many people, I started making films as a child, as a young student, and then sort of put it aside and just became a drifting college university student working in journalism. And then I managed to be in TV journalism for 2 decades. I was a reporter and presenter in news in the United States. And my time ran out, as it does for all of us at some point. And I was always in the TV news business. I was always hands-on. I started shooting film in my early 20s and editing film, and then later picked it up again. But I almost always edited all the stories and programs that I did. I was just hands-on. I would tell the editor, move aside. They knew to get out of their room, and I would sit down and edit, which is, so I did different roles. And then I started a production business to survive, working for clients, and documentaries has been part of it. And I've focused mostly on art and history.
How did we get here with you?
So I did not make films growing up as a kid. It wasn't until I was in college and I took a film class, and instead of dreading writing papers, I enjoyed editing, and I knew that there was something different in my life, and transferred to another school, started making films, and I kind of knew that the kind of films I wanted to make were not going to make me a whole lot of money. So I made the decision early on to get a graduate degree at Columbia University, and worked as a teacher of film for a long time, and then along the path started to run a film festival. So my sort of professional practice is making films. I have a new film that's going around the festival circuit, doing events and editing for other people, and a wide variety of material, and producing a TV show. I've produced a TV show on public television for over 25 years.
Okay. So executive producer on this film?
Yes.
What exactly is an executive producer as opposed to
I can tell you exactly
Push,
what I did.
push.
So I said to Quin had an earlier version of this film that was really important, and we were talking over time, and Quin was saying there are things going on now that are similar to the attitude. And I said, we have to remake this. We have to do this. And he finally agreed. And then he asked me to come over and ask him the questions. And so that interview with there, which was great. I learned a lot by being in the room and sort of seeing him. But, and the way that Quin edited this, and looking at it this time, I was impressed by the sound design, which I think works really, really well to sort of push the emotion. And what makes this film so special is the personal sense of being there. Like most people in the United States were not at that day. And the personal resonance for Quin and the people he lived with to tell these stories while they're alive, because 10 years from now, many of these people will not be alive.
Sure.
And all we get is the mythology, and this gives us something very personal, which I think is very important.
Yeah, most of the adult people who were adults at the time were dead.
Of course.
If you're, I mean, I'm 74 years old. If you're younger than me, you probably in the United States, you probably don't remember it. Have a direct memory of it. And people have asked me how long I worked on it, and the answer is over 60 years, literally, because I didn't know it for 20 years that I was on TV with the president going by. That ended up in a documentary released in 1964, produced by David Wolper. I can't remember the name of the film.
I know that film. I
you
can't
know?
remember the name of it, but yeah, it's famous.
And I didn't even know that. I saw it maybe 2 years ago. In my time as a journalist, I was asked to do a personal story about this, which was maybe a 3 or 4 minute story. And in doing thousands of news stories, that was the one people kept mentioning to me.
Right.
So when the 50th anniversary came around, that's when I decided to take a look at the city. It was a much more positive film than this one, because a lot of people don't know this. Dallas is actually, on balance, a liberal city and has been for about 25 years. It is what we would call a blue city, which I know in Canada it would be red, not blue, but similar to Labor here. And it's evolved that way. The suburbs have been turning, the inner suburbs have been turning Democratic. The outer suburbs are very conservative. Right. And that is where a lot of the current hate that we're talking about exists. So the city has changed, and of course, Dallas was a city of maybe 600, 800,000 people at the time, not a small city, but there are 8.3 million people there now. So it's roughly the size of Greater London. And the people who live there have no connection at all to this time period. But they are aware of things that are happening today. And so when Bart asked me, I'm not sure if he asked for a revision or a remake, but this was a totally new film. Yeah.
Right, so none of what we see existed in the original?
No, some of it did exist, because there are people in this film who've died in the last 12 years. Okay. For example, the minister that you saw, he died last year. Excuse me. But the people who were definitely adults are gone.
Yeah. Like the guy who said, he's our son of a bitch?
Yes, Bruce Alger. Bruce Alger was considered the most conservative member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Nobody liked him then, even the Republicans, I think, because he voted no on everything that was proposed. And he was an interesting character, and we also had a connection, which is that when he got divorced while he was a member of Congress, he rented a house that was later the house I owned and lived in. And so I've conversed with his daughter about how we lived in the same house.
Mm. So Lauren, what's your role in the campaign behind this film? What are you responsible for?
So I work for the Film Festival Doctor as executive assistant. So during this film's festival run, I was doing submissions, reaching out to festivals to let them know about the film, and really just, I guess, charioting this film along the way with Rebecca, who I work for. I got into this position when growing up. I knew that I wanted to help others tell their stories and create positive change within our communities. And I was always kind of awestruck when I went to a film, and then after there was so much thinking and reflection based on storytelling and the power of film. So I went to school for creative writing and screenwriting, and while I was in school, I went to school in Worcester. I was connected through a mutual friend to Rebecca. So from that, I started working with her and helping other filmmakers showcase their work and get their stories out into, I guess, the public through festivals. And I write and I script consult. So when I'm helping screenwriters tell their stories, a lot of what I see on the festival circuit and what's, I guess, excelling and how people tell their unique stories, that is aiding screenwriters beforehand.
Right. So you're already thinking about specifically the type of festivals it would work for, or just you're thinking about a festival audience or a festival run, or what audiences might want at that stage even, Yeah,
thinking about, I guess, how high a film can go and who that target audience is, because a lot of stories have been told before, but it's how to tell them in a unique way to you, or how to tell stories that haven't been told before, and telling the audience why it is important to tell that story, even if you're not from that specific community or of that time period, telling people why it's important now and how that can create change within their own lives and the community. So really just having, being a consultant and telling people and aiding people with how do I connect with myself and who I am, and how can I create stories that will connect to other people as well.
And for anyone who is a filmmaker in the audience, Rebecca was phenomenal. Bart got me in touch with Rebecca Louisa Smith, the film festival doctor, and then Lauren was instrumental in getting this film seen. And when you're a filmmaker, we know about Film Freeway, and you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to place your film. And Rebecca and Lauren know the festivals, and so Lauren, for example, knew, and Rebecca knew this was a good festival, and it is a good festival. I enjoyed the opening last night very much, and the film that preceded this one. So it's a matter of, it's a campaign, not a battle.
Right.
That is true.
Yeah, we know Rebecca very well. She sends us wonderful, wonderful films every year. So we're very grateful to her as well. How do you go about how do you know what festivals it may not work at? How do you decide on that?
Well, I guess it just depends on the demographic of the audience, because some places it might be an older demographic and something a little bit more racy or younger, I guess, might not be fitting for that demographic. So I guess it comes down to research, and we obviously have relationships with festival directors and programmers, so we have some insight into who they're programming for and who their audience is. So I guess it's a little bit of back and forth research on our own end, and then having those relationships, which are crucial to understanding what's valued.
As a former festival director, I can tell you that people who are telling you this is a film that you think would be good for your festival, that has real value.
Yeah, sure.
And Rebecca knows all of these people personally. And so rather than sending a film blind and then hoping it gets through particularly that first round of people who knows who those initial screeners are, but having somebody who can sort of do that is really important. And then what's really, I think, important for you is when you're helping screenwriters, when you're talking about screenwriting, and when you're working in the film festival world, it's very clear like what works. it's like it's intuitive in a way that somebody who doesn't go to a lot of festivals doesn't know. Because when you're writing your script, you're in your own head, right? This is the story, this is what's happening, this was there. And when you're watching it from a festival point of view, you know, well, you know, maybe if you started it quicker, this would happen a little bit better. And I think it's a valuable experience before the film is made to sort of shape it in a way that will work really well.
Yeah, exactly.
Did anyone in the audience have a question at this point? Pop your hand up. Yes, please. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Assassination. Amazing film. Thank you so much. My question is just more in terms of like the historical content. How difficult was it to include it in the film, and what kind of clothes did you have to get as well?
How important was the historical context or content? Did you say so? Content, and how difficult was it to get the clearance for that kind of
Get
stuff?
the archival material.
Well, yeah, that's an important point. From years ago, this started about 15 years ago in meetings. There's a museum in Dallas, which is a wonderful historical museum called the Sixth Floor Museum. And it is on the 6th and 7th floors of the building from which we believe, most people believe, the president was shot. And it's a great even-handed look at the assassination and politics of the time. And have had a relationship with that museum. I've done work for that museum, as Bart has. He edited the original films that are in the museum. And we got together with the local PBS or public television station to plan what we would do for the 50th anniversary. An issue with public television is there are a lot of meetings, and things don't get decided quickly. I work very quickly. For example, I said I worked on this film for 60 years. I also really put this film together in 3 months because I work, being from the news business, I work very quickly. And so the meetings dragged on and dragged on, and I decided I just need to make it myself. So I had the full cooperation of the Sixth Floor Museum, the use of their archive films, which are credited at the end of the film. I also have relationships with people at different television stations in Dallas, and I just knew people, so I was able to get clearances and get the footage in that way. There was one clip that I did not get clearance for. I had, stealing is part of the documentary process, and so I stole the footage, which was of General Edwin Walker saying, beware of the enemy, foreign and domestic, because I couldn't find anyone who would give it to me or who knew where it was, excuse me, other than the copy I had. And last week, someone, the TV station that owned it, has donated it all to a university, and I told the archivist, I said, I have to confess, I stole those clips, and she went, oh, fine, steal them. That's great. So we now have permission for everything.
Nice. Anyone else with a question? Yeah.
It's not really a question. I just found it really informative because I've got fairly limited knowledge of the history of America and of the geography, but I found it really interesting, the way some places still segregation was not obvious, but how some places still are in the dark ages really, and that really came across. I really enjoyed it.
On that subject, what do you think it can tell us about America now, or what can
Oh boy.
hopefully learn from?
Oh boy. The year 2025 was not in my head when we made this film.
Sure.
I had not seen the film. The film was completed in the fall of 2023, and it was screened in an Austin Film Festival, the Austin International Film Festival, a week ago. And I hadn't seen it in months. And I was actually a little in shock at what has happened. Seeing it today, even in what's happened in the last day. And if you look at public opinion polls, I don't know how reliable they are, but they all seem to be saying the same thing, which is that, we'll name names here, that Americans are not happy with the things that Trump has done. I mean, that his opinion has dropped dramatically, and that if you ask people about specific things he's done, yesterday his administration ruled or said that Harvard, which is the richest university, private university in America, cannot take international students, and they have to all leave. I doubt that that's legal. I'm sure it's illegal, and that horrified me. And the other thing is Trump got top buyers of his cryptocurrency, if I'm understanding this correctly, to a private dinner at his golf course in Virginia, I believe.
I think that's correct.
And you just don't know what is the bad news that's happening today. This is not the people of the United States, and yet we know it also is the people of the United States. I like to think that doesn't represent the country that we have, and I'm going to keep showing this film just to remind people of the dangers of hate, and what John Wiley Price said is the difference between prejudice and hate. And I think we just have to keep history alive, and that includes today's history.
And just to add to that, I mean, it really is more valuable now than when we originally made this, even just a few years ago. But your film deals with the idea that race was so important. It runs right through this. And if you think about a lot of what Trump is doing, so much of it is about erasing African American history. And so it's still exactly the same sort of things that was there. You know, they talk about history repeating itself and history rhyming. And I think this film reminds us what happens when these things are left unchecked.
And I'm going to bring up something you haven't asked me, which is, I'm not saying that Bart shares this opinion. I believe that the assassin of Kennedy, I don't get into this film, acted alone, and I do know a lot about the assassination. That I've always thought there is no connection between a minority of people in a city 62 years ago who expressed hate, that there was no connection between that attitude and the assassination, and I'm rethinking that. And I don't think you cannot dismiss an atmosphere of hate being connected to how it affects individuals. Look how it affected the individuals who stormed the U.S. Capitol. And in terms of race, look how it's affecting white Afrikaners are being led into the United States when basically no one else is, partly because Trump says they can assimilate easier. And what that means is they're white. Right. Now, we are white, so it's very uncomfortable. And when I did see this film for the first time in months, I was shocked by what's happening today. Some of the things in the film, quite frankly, sound quaint. When they're talking about banning books, I mean, that's the least of it right now. Or the Black American history.
It doesn't matter. The Trumpists don't read anyway.
Well, whatever they do, they are ingesting information. And we have a crisis. We have a terrible crisis right now in information and in journalism.
And I'm from Canada, but where I'm from in Canada is across from Detroit, Michigan, but I've been living in the UK, so being able to travel, it's interesting that at this time there's a lot of hate everywhere, and there's a lot towards immigrants and refugees, and I feel like there is also a big wealth divide, and a lot of this hate is put on these people as well. So I guess my question to both of you is, I feel like there's a sense of hopelessness, especially when these people in power perhaps aren't looking out for people of lower economic standing or people that are of a different color or race or culture. So what perspective do you think we need to have, and how can we actually make positive changes on an individual level?
Well, let me sort of address another part of that question. There's one of the things film talks about is when things are changing drastically, then, and we have this sort of digital shift that's going on, and people are wondering, where do we all land in that position? And that's sort of one layer of anxiety that causes shifts and changes and anxiety. And then, like, layered on top of that, we have the sort of new oligarchy that we used to be, you know, a capitalist country, and now we are a bribe country. And there is this kind of shift in that perspective as well. And this all is sort of affecting us in a very, really and powerful way. But there's so much fear going on that people are going to lose out. And I think that's where a lot of the hate comes from.
I think it is also, I don't operate with hope because I consider it a passive feeling, and I think, you know, you have to take action. And I am committed in whatever I can do in a very small way to promote the idea that in the United States, our Congress, as you probably know, is very closely divided. It's a matter of 3 or 4 votes in the lower chamber, the House of Representatives, and in the Senate, the upper chamber, it's a matter of, I believe, 4 votes. And I believe, this is not hope, I mean, it's going to take work to do this, that we need to work on the Democrats in Congress to pull Republicans away from MAGA, away from Trump, one by one. It's not going to take that many. It's not going to be enough to remove him from power. But I think it can be enough to stop things.
To have a check.
To be a check, even more than a check, to really stop things. I think at some point it is going to, his actions are going to be too much for even very conservative Republican members of Congress. And I think that could happen soon. They are, something that concerns me, I have family that's worked on Capitol Hill, one of whom was a top aide to one of the top members of Congress, and he says that members of the U.S. Congress are physically afraid, right? Excuse me, the Republicans are physically afraid. Trump let 1,500 violent people out of prison, and any one of those people could be a threat to a Republican. I think the Democrats feel less of a threat, but Republican members many of whom don't like Trump, really hate him personally, are physically afraid. And I think we just have to pull them one by one, and they're going to be people that Democrats don't agree with, but we're just going to have to pull them over. And this is not hope, but I believe it can be done.
Let me also say that there's a role here for filmmakers. You know, that in our country, there's a network that spews lies every day. But independent filmmakers making films can take complex ideas like this film does and make you emotionally feel something in a different kind of way and turn that into action. And I think that that's what we need. And we as filmmakers are cultural warriors in this battle.
Final question from me. Where's this film going next? Where else are you going to play it?
I don't know. Lauren may know.
Can we just call Rebecca and ask her?
Yeah. So we're still waiting on selections at this point. So right now, this is the international premiere, but hopefully some good news soon.
I think the film, I don't think it's dated yet. I mean, it was already dated by being 60 years old. So I'm going to work on it. It's having a life. That's all I can answer.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us and submitting the film and allowing us to play it here and be your international premiere.
Thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I love the attitude of the festival and the people I've met, and the opening night was great.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much. Best of luck with the film. Can I have
Thank
a round
you.
of applause, please, for our filmmakers?
Thank all of you.
Thank you.